Hello, guys. Welcome back to Growing Men, Growing Connections, episode 5. I am super excited to be joined here by Jeremy Ingham, who in the last year has stepped into the chair of the committee of the WA Men's Gathering. He is one of our fearless or courageous leaders in this beautiful space. Also, a dear friend of mine. I'm personally excited to be collaborating with this space, to be getting to work under Jeremy's leadership or with Jeremy's leadership. And I'm really excited for this conversation because Jeremy's been in this community for over a couple of decades now. And I know he's got a massive heart. And I'm just stoked to be having this conversation with you, mate.
Thank you, Jordo. I'm sitting, wow. Thank you for that awesome introduction. I hope I can live up to your very generous words. Thank you. But I also expressing that sense of personal joy in me sitting here with you that you and I have been on this journey together for some time now. And yeah, the fact that here we are collaborating on a significant and valuable piece of work in the community is something very precious for me.
Yeah, likewise. Speaking of this precious work, my first question for you is, what is it actually that drives you to support and lead this work, and in particular the WA Men's Gathering on this occasion?
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, the driver is quite a simple thing that back many moons ago when I first started to realize that the effect of me being in the world was actually a range of damaged human beings in my wake, and I was unconscious and I was an asshole, and I was using my charm as a tool to get momentary gratification out of life, and didn't really have any conscious awareness of who I was or what I was doing. So at that point, I turned around and looked at it and said, this can't go on. So at that point, I had a dear friend, Jane, who had just completed her Jungian counsellor studies. And so I went to see Jane and talk about this sense of foreboding, this sense of
Mm,
uselessness or shallowness, and she laughed at me. She thought it was the funniest thing she about time, Jeremy, she said. So that was a significant, one of the life-changing moments in my life when I chose to look at
mm,
who I am and why do I do what I do, and what is this damage I'm doing in the world. Um, and now, that's like 40 years ago. And now I look back at that moment with great joy and wonder at how that change occurred.
mm,
And that is what drives my passion around. I want that moment to be available for every man.
mm,
Um, and because I get that the world we live in isn't actually designed or supportive of developing humans as human beings
mm,
in our capacity to relate to each other in an honest and real way. We're developed and trained and conditioned more as, to use the old phrases, grist for the mill, or feed the hungry machine, the hungry
mm,
beast, that kind of
mm,
framing. So when a man arrives at some point of, well, actually the world doesn't work for me, and so there's that deep, unidentifiable yearning about, is this
mm,
all there is? Is this what my life is actually about? And of course, the world doesn't say yes. It doesn't actually support us in developing as healthy humans. And of course, that's not just blokes, that's the whole of
mm,
humanity. And we're educating our children to be less and less human as we move through. So it's
mm,
that passion to make sure that every man, um, human, but in my case, men, because that's what drives me. And I am a man, so I know more about being a bloke than I still. It's still a bit of a mystery how to relate to women. I'm still not sure about that. But yeah. So there's the passion. It's about making sure,
mm,
yeah, that every guy
mm,
gets the chance
mm,
to look internally to develop some sense of self-awareness. That's what
mm,
drives me.
mm. Thank you, mate. Such a heartfelt response. I can really feel the point of the spear. It's just so direct and so sharp in, I want every man to have this opportunity when he's ready to choose it, and that really resonates for me. And I think it's such a necessary gift to offer men and to offer the world through each of those men. So,
Yeah.
yeah. in your sharing with me before we jumped on this interview, you spoke to having first joined the gathering 4 or 5 years after it first started. What was it that drew you to the WA Men's Gathering at that particular time after you'd started to make this shifting point in your life?
Great question. I think it reminded me when I first saw the label Men's Gathering, and now that I recall that it was around that there was a thing that used to be called the Australia and New Zealand Men's Leadership Gathering, and that was a combination of obviously Aussies and New Zealanders coming together, and one of those events was actually the WA Men's Gathering, and it hosted that New Zealand and Australian theme. So they were put together as one event, and I'm pretty confident that was the first one I went to. So it was the idea that the gathering was the label, and I'd been reading Robert Bly, and I'd been watching videos coming out of the United States of Robert Bly and
Mm,
Michael Mead on stage with a huge hall filled with men, and getting these momentary interviews from those blokes saying things like, "It didn't occur to me that I was really surprised that so many men feel like I do," and that was the beginning of that. If we can call it the men's movement. So it was the gathering, it was the label that had me lean in. So I want
mm,
to be part of this. And
mm,
then, of course, as soon as I stepped in there, and I was very fortunate, I was blessed with my original exchange with the gathering was meeting Wes Carter
mm,
and then Peter Efford.
mm,
And so those two just embraced me and said, bring your blokey energy into this place, please,
mm,
and let's get you involved. So it was really
mm,
the label and the idea about men coming together in the simplest way, just to talk to each other, and even not even necessarily talk, just to be
mm,
in the same physical space together with a similar yearning to
mm,
know more about life and each other.
mm, mm. It's such a key moment, I feel like, as I reflect on my own journey and other men that I've supported, this transitional point, once I think we settle into ourselves more deeply and we actually feel some of the things that have been going on inside of us for so many years potentially that have been unacknowledged or unfelt. It seems to me that from that deeper place of feeling, there's this almost automatic tendency then to recognize how potentially alone we've been and how much we desire to be more connected with other
Mm,
men, but human beings in general. And I think it's interesting because there's also a practice to that. Like, even just yesterday, I was navigating some of these feelings of aloneness that I think can be very common for men, where it's like, wow, I feel so isolated and shut off in my own unique, challenging experience with whatever particular stresses or pressures I'm facing. And yeah, when we can drop below that surface level stress and tension and recognize the human experience that we're facing, I think that next step of reaching out and being like, okay, I can gather, and then the hearing of other stories where it's like, oh wow, there's others that feel like this. It doesn't change or fix the things we're facing, but it somehow makes them a lot less heavy to bear because it's like, I'm actually not alone. I'm not the only one. This isn't a unique problem. We actually are all in this together to an extent, even if the world is set up in a way that has us quite separated at times.
mm. Yeah, I think we've done a pretty good job at educating ourselves out of some of our core capacities. That
Mm,
you know and I get really nervous when I start saying these kind of things because it feels a little bit like it's way out there, and every now and then when I stick my neck, it gets chopped off. So I get a little bit nervous when I feel like we are all connected in some energetic, weaving kind of way.
mm,
And I can see when I look carefully that there's plenty of evidence to support that in the natural world.
mm,
Along the lines of how a female wolf with cubs can sense somebody crossing her boundary from 5 kilometers away.
mm,
How does that, in the scientific brain, how does that work?
mm,
And that's just one example. There's a thing in horses. I don't know whether you've ever seen horses raise their front lip and do that. It looks weird. Um, And in a human, we transfer that to, oh, look, the horse is unhappy. Actually, what's going on is they're exposing their Jorgensen organ, which is underneath their front lip. And that organ can sense tiny shifts in air pressure, in aroma, stuff that's been left in
Mm,
the air. So they're
mm,
doing that to sniff out where the threats are.
mm,
So, and we have that same organ in our in the upper part of our mouth. So, and here I get, there's the rabbit hole, diving down the rabbit. So pull it back into what's real for me is that we are way more capable of connecting than we
mm,
currently do.
mm,
And I think as we grew as a race, many humans, millennia ago, and some of our tribal cultures still have these skills.
mm,
Uh, but as we developed back then, those kind of capacities to feel and sense stuff, which have been trained out of us in
mm,
2025, are still there and we can
mm,
still reignite them. So when we come
mm,
together in a group, there's this natural tendency to lean into that group
mm,
because we want to be part of a human thing. We want to be, it's a natural bodily response to being in
mm,
the presence of other human beings. And Robert
mm,
Bly said it beautifully when he was talking about the healthy development of a young man that in pre-industrial revolution days, the boy would grow in the presence of the man. So the father and son would actually do what the father was
mm,
doing, like tilling the field or beating
mm,
metal or whatever it was that he did. The boy would be with him. And Robert Bly called the cellular exchange.
mm,
So the transfer of wisdom, the transfer of knowledge happened at a cellular level,
mm,
which is
mm,
kind of mind blowing in today's world. But I believe that to be true, and
mm,
that we've taken that away. We've removed that capacity for young men, boys particularly, to gather that information. So now they gather it from their devices or
mm.
from a screen or whatever. Yeah, I think I'm not sure where to go from here. I feel like
Mm,
I've
mm.
dived down a
No, I
rabbit
love it
hole,
because,
stuck in the
well,
mud.
just that that last example, yeah, it touches really on the mentoring and the presence that so many men lack in their lives these days. And I think there can be a common question for men that maybe haven't joined these spaces as much around like, why would I even want to be there? Like that just feels unnatural. Or why would I go and share my vulnerable, like my internal thoughts and feelings with a whole bunch of men I don't know? And I think that's a really natural safety response because certainly my experience out in the world is that a lot of what I've learned about my reference point to other men is that they're there to compete with, they're there to compare myself to, and all of the results I get from those comparisons and competitions help feed the story of whether I'm more than and enough or whether I'm less than and not valuable enough and what I need to do to continue to further this unwinnable injury
Yeah,
that so many of us have sustained. And I
yeah,
think, part of that settling process I see happen when we have the opportunity to meet another man we don't know so well or haven't met before, look him in the eye or sit in a circle and share some stories about our lives is similar to what a footy team experiences on the field, where they have a common challenge to unite them. We start to recognize that we're all sitting in our own unique positions on the field with common challenges in life, which is, things like needing to provide for families, needing to keep a roof over our head, needing to find a way to feed ourselves and the ones we love, needing to eventually arrive at some level of purpose to give our lives meaning. So all of these things can bring us together, and in that togetherness, I think there's a whole different kind of game that you're playing on a footy field if you're woven together as a team and you're one unit versus a bunch of guys that are just out there chasing the ball by themselves. It's two very
yeah,
different experiences. So I think that's a large chunk of what's on offer here at the gathering, and what can start to replace some of those places of hurt or emptiness where you maybe didn't receive the love, the presence, the guidance, the mentorship that we're actually set up to receive, as he's speaking to.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that it's one of the really appealing things for me about this particular event is is that we're quite clear in the way we present the gathering up front, is that there's no expectation that any man will do anything he's not comfortable doing.
mm,
So there's an opportunity to come to the WA men's gathering. I'm not sure that all the others are the same, and there are many others, by the way. That it's okay to sit and observe. It's absolutely okay, and that
mm,
you may get a facilitator saying, please join us. And if you actually, I'd like to sit in the background and watch. If that's absolutely, that's okay. So there is that potential to sit wholeheartedly in the I don't not sure about this, and so I'm
mm,
going to just keep myself safe and held in the background.
mm,
That's absolutely fine, and that inevitably, in my experience, I have never seen yet a man stay in that place.
mm, mm,
I've seen many men go there, and occasionally, and a man will leave an event because he's, for whatever reasons that motivate him to say, this is not for me.
mm,
That's absolutely fine. No one's going to judge that or
mm,
suggest it's wrong. We do like to check in afterwards to make sure that that man's okay.
mm,
But there is that once the thing that's just hitting me while I'm talking about that offering is how change can occur in a human being and be the tiniest shift in perception. That when there's when I had my epiphanies, and I've had several of life-changing events occur to me, and I don't think I'm an unusual human being. Um, that sometimes it's been just the tiniest shift in perception,
mm,
that the world hasn't changed, all the people around me haven't changed.
mm,
There's nothing essentially different in me, except that all I've done is find a way to go, this is how I see it now. And then 5 seconds later, oh, look. And it's like the world changes. It's like everything,
mm,
oh, wow. And all that's happened really is that I have looked at the world slightly differently. So a
mm,
tiny shift in perception can have life-changing impacts. And I think that's the kind of opportunity that
mm,
exists in the gathering to do. And it doesn't have to be conscious. You don't have to know that you're doing that.
yeah,
It's to say that there is that possibility that life can change in a heartbeat. And often in response to events outside our control, like accidents and
mm,
emergencies and
mm,
things that no one can see coming,
mm,
um, they do change lives. And you can
mm,
see it in how people react to trauma and blah, blah. But the other side of that is the same thing can happen in a positive way. That life can take on a whole new meaning just by the simplest shift in perception.
mm, mm.
Mm.
Absolutely. I love that you speak to the opportunity because I think it's what, that's where we started in this conversation in so many ways, which is the opportunities are lacking for so many men. And so part of our effort here is to make the opportunity more available. And I think, for that to be real, choice is the biggest foundation. And
Yeah, yeah,
another thing I think I experience in the modern world is a lot of sense of pressure and almost at least perceived choicelessness at times in my own life where it's like, wow, I've got to really work to find what my choices are here and to start to cultivate choices, like actually make some different options available to myself because it's so easy to just to jump on some tracks and just be full steam ahead and be like, wow, I just got to keep following this path.
yeah,
So, that's really key here. And the final thing I want to mention inside of that little matrix is part of the benefit of having others with us in these spaces is that inside of the opportunity and choice, there's also this third element of inspiration. And when we get to watch other men opening or watch what's possible for someone else, we start to naturally ask ourselves the question, wow, I've shared a story that's not so different to some of these guys. Maybe that's possible for me too. And if I'm
mm,
given the space to move forward at a rate that is okay with me, that feels right for me, then maybe I can arrive in a different place too. And more often than not, I see that absolutely being the case in these kinds of spaces. And it's just beautiful to watch the unique journey and actually to see more of a man's authenticity or unique way come online as he finds his particular way of navigating the circumstance rather than the cookie cutter way that's been taught by whatever institution we've been a part of. So,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's one of the most rewarding parts, I think, for me of being someone that supports these spaces.
Yeah, it nudges me on the value of alignment. What's continuously true for me is how I've learnt this capacity to feel my way through the world. And it sounds like a glib thing to say. I understand that, and yet when I'm in the company of men doing men's stuff, which is it could be anything. But I find myself opening. I find
Mm,
myself more willing
mm,
um, to be exposed and talk about the truth of being me, which has got nothing to do with money, car, wealth, family. It's to do with how I feel in myself.
mm,
So the capacity to recognize that I'm an emotional based being and that with all the inputs coming into me, I have emotional responses, and to ignore that, to suppress that, to choose to go, no, that's not relevant because I need to be focused on this. So intellect rather than heart, if you
mm,
like, we can put it that one or the other way, which is doesn't necessarily serve us, but there is that way of looking at the world, and I'm actually shutting down a huge part of who I am.
mm,
That shutting down will inevitably express itself in some other way, sometimes really unfortunately, and sometimes dramatically, and sometimes dangerously.
mm,
So the
mm,
words of the great Brené Brown ring in my ears all the time about vulnerability being
mm,
actually the strongest way I can be in the world.
mm,
Is
mm,
to be vulnerable and open is way stronger and way more courageous than shutting myself down and turning away from the challenge of being deeply connected to you as a brother and a fellow human being and every other man who happens to be in my space.
mm,
So
mm,
there's that, I think yeah, that kind of approach about which I'm calling alignment. So for me to be open and available and willing to have my head chopped off. It's okay. That's a little bit violent, but willing to be abused, which has happened quite a bit when I stick my head out on Facebook and make some silly emotional statements, and bang, 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 and the feedback is that's a load of crap. Shut up.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
that kind, that kind, that kind of stuff. What's aligned for me is that freedom, that expression that I choose now, which 40 years ago, I was the other guy that,
mm,
leave me alone. I know what I'm
mm,
doing.
mm,
Um, so it's alignment. It's about the purity and the essence of who I am as a human being, as a bloke, and what serves me best. And what serves me best is a sense of contribution and a sense of belonging and connection, deep, heartfelt connection with another man.
mm. Beautiful. I love it, man. I feel like this is a great place to speak a little bit to the fact that you've stepped into a role very intentionally in the gathering over the last year or so, and
Mm.
that you've also got a level of vision for the gathering that you're wanting to contribute to and help take it towards. So I'd love to hear a little bit about what that vision is and what you want for the gathering right now and moving forward.
Yeah, thank you. I feel like some there's a little bit of background that I think is important
Mm,
uh, how did I get here and what am I doing?
mm,
I was in this exact same role in 2016
mm,
had an awesome group of men, and we did start to move forward towards where I can see where we could see the valuable future for the gathering. And then late in 2016, my awesome daughter tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Dad, how about you help me with this amazing horse event that I've just taken on board as the director?" And so family being number one, of course, and that my response to her request was, "Yes, I'm in." And so I spent several years, like 7 years, collaborating with my daughter, and she created this amazing event that ended up
mm,
being one of the premier events on the WA equestrian calendar. And then that event got to a point where I was no longer required to be the supporter, and so that happened last year before. Um, and then I started to look at, so where now? What do I do? Then the gathering just landed in my lap, and it was like the universe or some other forth saying to me, here's your second opportunity.
Mm,
Um, and I got some feedback from guys who'd been at the last few, and it was clear um, that there was a need to re-energize or
mm,
reframe or
mm,
refocus or whatever that word is. So I developed an idea. Gathered all that data that I had about where we were and the interval that happened in between and what it is that's really supportive of men on their journey. One of the pieces that had been dropped was, or not dropped, but had been let go was there's that a sustainable event like this, for the event to be sustainable, it needs to have a universal appeal across the
mm,
board,
mm,
meaning all ages and stages of life and types of men
mm,
need to have something that appeals to them about the gathering, and that we hadn't deliberately focused on engaging young men in the
mm,
gather. And even though the beauty when young guys turn up is the old guys light up, and you go, well, look what's happening here. So that's part of the visioning is firstly making it sustainable on all fronts. So socially, financially, mechanically, if you like, that the event can be sustained, um, that it all works and we can keep doing it.
mm,
And part of that sustainability is an appeal to young men.
mm.
And here I sit with you as the key presenter in your, am I allowed to say, early 30s?
You are.
So you represent for me the young man,
Mm,
your energy and the way you present in the world and your incredible resume that you put together in so many, dare I say, short years. That's really impressive, and that's one of the reasons why I don't know how to speak 25-year-old. So I don't have a way of of appealing. I mean, I can
mm,
say you're 25 years old, you need to come along. And
mm,
what I can hear back back in 2016, we had the Young Australian of the Year who was living
mm,
in Perth at the time, still does. He's now the mayor of one, and he's still in his 20s, one of our major centres.
mm,
He came along to the gathering in 2016, stood up and addressed all these blokes and said, "You've got it wrong." And I thought, this is the most courageous young man I've ever seen. He's
mm,
standing in front of 70 odd, 50 plus men saying, "You guys have got it wrong." And of course, while there's that reaction, which was essentially resistance, and what does he know? He's a young bloke. What does he know? My reaction is, tell me more. What can I
mm,
learn from you? How can
mm,
I find a way to engage more exciting young men like you?
mm,
And so that's where I am now. So here's the second chance to go back to that thinking and how do I find a way? So one of the things that's deliberate here is finding people like you who
mm,
can talk to 25-year-olds in that language that I don't have, that brings that enticement, that curiosity, that sense of engagement. So that's an essential part of the visioning. And there's a lot of other pieces in the vision, some of which are just logistics and some of which are governance. Like
mm,
we're not for profit, so we need to be careful and deliberate about how we react to the government regulator
mm,
in terms of doing what we said we would do as a not-for-profit organisation.
mm,
That's a key piece. But it's background, and no one
mm.
really wants to engage with that. There's a handful of men like my mate Daryl, who loves that stuff, and you beauty, Daryl's the man.
They're
But
always
other
angels.
things about, yeah, indeed. Other things about creating a group of elders that's self-generating, that develops a mentor program that can be an advisory panel for the gathering, and developing a group of, in the gathering, there's a thing called affinity groups where we
Mm,
break the men into 6 to 8 men in a small group. And that's where some of the real juicy opportunities for personal growth come from.
mm,
And so those groups need to be led by men who know what they're doing and can
mm,
hold that group in a really healthy way. So training those guys, developing effective affinity groups. And then we want to also look at other things we can do so that the gathering is not so much a single event focus, but it becomes a bigger piece where it embraces the opportunities for maybe we can seed men's groups. And that just touches me in big ways because I had a phone call yesterday from a guy who's coming along this year who's been in one of the local men's groups for 25 years. It's one of the
Mm,
oldest groups in Perth. And they've decided they want to deliberately spread that word. So they're offering to seed new men's groups
mm,
by going in and one or two of them, this is how we started, and here's an idea about how you can structure it. Two or three meetings in, and then you guys can, carry on
mm,
your own.
mm,
That offering is yeah. So there's, as you can tell, I'm a little bit passionate about this. Um, so there's more to it.
mm,
But it's yeah, there's the vision is sustainability. It's about bringing young men in, and I'm quite sincere in my passion and desire for the gathering to be a long-term piece of work, and that my role here is 2 or 3 years.
mm,
And I'm not the future of the gathering.
mm,
I might be one of the old blokes sitting on the side who occasionally gets asked a question or occasionally feels the urge to, that young bloke's gonna blow up in a minute. So let's see if we can embrace him before life
mm,
turns to shit. Like the
mm,
classic elder role,
mm,
uh, that I think Peter beautifully expressed in his interview with you. But so there's the and it's for me, I feel like I could sit here and talk forever
mm,
about the future of the gathering and all the minutiae and all the little details that can fit together. But it is important to say that last piece that my sense of influence here is limited to 3 years,
mm,
and
mm.
beyond that, if I haven't achieved the vision at that point, then whatever it is, I'm handing it over,
Yeah.
stepping away into. I'm really hoping that there's a handful of blokes under 40 who really want to move this forward.
Mm, mm, mm.
Wow,
Yeah, thank you, mate.
I just run off it.
No, well, it's beautiful to be involved in that vision. I feel really honored to play my part however I can. And also what I hear really loudly in you is an invitation to men who are in the community already or who are joining the community this year that there is an opportunity coming that is more than just being at the gathering. There's an opportunity here to bring your particular flavor of service and help this event continue, and that we're looking for enthusiasm, energy, desire, people that want to have a sense of, purpose in their lives. Like this is the kind of place where you can have that land where that can be created in your life. And it's invaluable because I think the gift of having our own gifts received by someone or by a community is actually what is one of the most essential parts of being human, I think. And so, yeah, and the final other piece that I really want to highlight and touch on as we, come to the close of this chat is the incredible, unique opportunity of how many elders are already in the space and how much desire I know there is in the world for there to be more formed, mutually beneficial, meaningful relationships between younger men and older men, and
Mm.
how common a story it is for so many men in the world of, I didn't have someone I could look up to. I didn't have someone I could turn to. I didn't have someone that I could lean into. And even as a man who has a loving father, who has a deeply supportive father and an incredible community, I've still navigated periods of time where I'm like, where's my mentor for this? Where's the guy I can look to for this? Where's the guy who's navigated this before? And yeah, they're out there. And also, I think we've actually got to enter a period of time where we're willing to be in the imperfection of practicing asking the right questions of each other and allowing the deeper truths of one another to emerge, because it's easy to think that we don't have things in common across those spans of life, but actually there's so much gold to be given and received between, men of all ages. So
Yeah.
I'm really excited to be a part of furthering that and helping particularly the individuals that arrive, whoever they are at this gathering, but also that we're laying foundations for a fuller expression of that in years to come.
Yeah, it reminds me of the model of healthy humanity that I picked up
Mm,
when I was doing some work on Native American culture, that they see life as a wheel
mm,
rather than a straight line process. The other way of looking at life is as a wheel. And of course, the wheel works best when all the individuals are at the right place in the wheel.
mm, mm,
Um, and, and of course, if you take one of those essential pieces out, like elders, then the wheel doesn't work so well. So
mm,
for me,
mm,
that's a really simple but clear way of viewing what we're doing here. And in my heart, it's about viewing it as a wheel rather than a straight line.
mm,
And then, okay, so what are the essential pieces that the wheel needs? The spokes on the wheel, what are they? And what can we do as a group of men, a group of individuals to ensure that all those spots are actually occupied
mm,
so the
mm,
wheel rotates in a
mm,
really effective, healthy way?
mm. Beautiful, mate. Well, to any men listening, you have an opportunity to come and take your place up in the wheel and
Indeed,
be a part
indeed,
of
please.
this incredible gathering and
Yeah.
give what you have and receive what you need and what you want,
Mm,
and what you don't even know that you want and need.
yeah.
There's beautiful mystery and gifts that arrive in these places, in my experience, that are completely unexpected, and sometimes they're the deepest gifts. So
Yeah.
it's been an absolute pleasure, mate, to chat with you. I'm stoked that this is going out to the world, and I'm really excited to be meeting up with you soon on Western Australian soil
Yeah,
to
you are.
journey deep.
So thank you, Jordan. I really value the way that your care and love and
Mm,
holding in
mm,
this space. And yeah, like you, yeehaw, I'm really looking
mm,
forward to this being, step one in the future of creating a sustainable and valuable, engaging event, and other things that will flow on from it. So I'm really feeling the excitement of contributing, and this exchange brings the best of me, and I get really, wow, where's the best version of Jezza? It's really,
mm,
yeah, it's a beautiful
mm,
calling out, calling to be, and
mm,
yeah, and you initiate that in me. So I'm
mm.
really grateful for our connection as well.
Thank you, man. Yeah, thank you. We'll see you at the gathering. Big love, man.
Oh, you bet. See you there.